Welcome to Goalie Science, the podcast that bridges the gap between goaltending, science, and peak performance. I'm your host, Jamie Phillips, a former professional goalie, currently pursuing a doctorate in physical therapy and specializing in goalie performance coaching. Joining me as always is Dr. Ben Cernick, a seasoned goalie coach and sports analytics specialist. Whether you find yourself at home, on the road, or at the rink, grab a cup of your favorite beverage and let's drop the puck on this week's episode.
Jamie, we are back for another week. Another week with you actually being here. I could not be happier. The people are disappointed you're back. I got some messages saying, loved your solo episode, Ben. Wish Jamie would quit, honestly. The show would be so much better, but you're here anyway. So thank you.
Yeah, honestly, Ben, sometimes I wish I would, because I have to talk to you on Sunday night at 9 o'clock. I just want to go to bed. I wake up at 5 in the morning. I want to go to bed.
And this is maybe the most important thing our show's ever done, Jamie, is acknowledge that you can make smarter life choices than the ones we've made. And if we can help anyone out there do that, we are here to help you with those.
My advice is don't go into healthcare. Do anything else.
You go into healthcare. If you go into healthcare, fully understand the dimensions of the healthcare industry that you're in.
And don't do anything else on the side. Don't have other passions.
Yeah. Why? Don't be passionate about anything. Just stay the course. But enough about career advice, Jamie. I brought another topic this week because you're working about 900 hours a week. So myself, the research department here at the Goalie Science podcast. Oh, announcement for outside, Jamie. Finished my thesis data collection.
Congratulations.
So everyone can pay attention. We have some hockey related data that hopefully, as we kind of keep going forward here, you'll hear more and more stuff. I think coaches and parents and goalies will probably be interested about that too. So we'll start.
Does that mean you can write my workouts sometime, or?
All right.
Also, so you sent this is all about me. You sent me NHL Edge, which is what we're going to talk about, because I don't have no idea what that is. But as I was glancing at the page you sent me, Joseph Woll has a 133 and a 961. Why is he not playing every game?
Well, Joseph Woll is absolutely probably the Leaf starter. It hasn't been formally announced, but he is very much so taken over that position. And Jamie, I feel super validated because I've been on the Joseph Woll train for a few years now. And I went on the record a few times.
We went that 3 years ago. We were talking when they were like, this guy's way better.
I know. Yeah, I mean, people will be like, he didn't play a lot in the HL, he got hurt, yada, yada, yada. Yes, but if you go back into the archives somewhere on the internet, you'll see Jamie and I saying that when the Leafs traded for both Matt Murray and Samsonov, we were a little confused by that. So that was a little bit confusing to us. We thought it was Wall for
one of those guys.
Probably, yeah. Because anyways, yeah, So let's talk about NHL Edge, and then we can talk about us being
right. I need you to as you were explaining this to our listeners and viewers, thank you for listening and viewing. If you're on YouTube, you know what? Appreciate it. Just put it on silent if you want. YouTube really cares about watched minutes, and they don't care about listened minutes. I have no idea what NHL Edge is. You just texted me and said NHL Edge is in, and I said I don't know what that means. So what does that mean, Ben?
So for people who don't know, the NHL, the league itself, has stat trackers and has a lot of technology invested into tracking data. So for example, people might not know this, but the pucks used in NHL games have trackers in them. Every jersey on the ice is a tracker in it. So the NHL is aware of who's on the ice, who has the puck, how far the puck is, et cetera, how fast players are moving, how fast players are shooting. They have all that data. And a lot of times people are upset, well, why don't they release the data? And obviously it's a bit of a complicated reason why, but NHL Edge is the first edition, the first piece of the NHL releasing some of that extra information that they have on their back end. So previously, if you went on NHL.com and you looked at your favorite teams, your favorite goalie stats, you would get things like, save percentage, goals against average, wins, losses, et cetera, et cetera. The very basic things that we've grown accustomed to. But if you've been paying closer attention to hockey over the past few years, we've started to see a bunch more information that comes out around advanced statistics and information. And so I think the NHL League is going to start putting out more and more advanced information. But what they currently have released, NHL Edge, it is a piece of that tracking data. They have some stuff for players. It's like how fast players are skating, how often they go over 90%, shot speed, which admittedly is all kind of interesting, but not really relevant to evaluate players. It doesn't, how fast someone shoot is kind of fun, but ultimately, like, if you're in the NHL, you probably kind of shoot hard enough. Yeah, it's not quite the same, but it is their attempt at it. But for goalies, which is, I'm assuming most people listening to this probably care about, they've released gave us a little bit of a crumb, I would say, a crumb of the information that the NHL has available. But they gave us shot locations. That's the biggest thing. They gave us, now you can go on NHL Edge and look at where every shot and every save and every goal comes from on the ice in little regions. So not specific points, but these little regions. And I think that's pretty cool. They've also isolated. So Jim and I are looking at Joseph Woll's isolated page right now. And when you look at the saves on it, they break down things again, like all location saves, high danger saves, and then what they call mid-range and long range. And I think that's really interesting. I think that's the first step that I was going to recommend to all goalies, parents, coaches. If you are tracking any kind of stats for your team, please don't just count shots. Add shot location. It changes a lot. It adds a lot of information.
Yeah, and to do that, if you're,
what do you think?
If you're a parent and you're listening and you're in charge of tracking shots, all you need is just like the end zone, like 3 end zones, and just put an X wherever that shot's taken from. And then you can kind of like tally that up towards the end, and you can kind of get a rough estimate of where the shots are. So you don't have to worry about being super in depth with everything. You just want a little bit of a map after. What do I think? I think it's good. I definitely think it's a good start. My biggest gripe with the shot map doesn't tell you the situation. I don't know if and how that's even possible. Like, it says right here.
Oh, they have it. They have all that information.
Yeah, I just don't know how they present it in a way that like makes sense and is like reliable across all goalies. That would be a very difficult thing. That's also why I'm not getting my master's in stats. But like it says right here, like Joseph Woll's given up 5 shots from the point. I mean, if no one's in front or there's no tips, that doesn't, 5 goals. And that doesn't he's stopping those 100% of the time. Whereas like on paper, it's like, well, those are bad. Those are low danger goals. But if there's a flash screen and 3 guys in front, then it's a lot. That's very high. It's dangerous. The one thing I do like that it gives your league average versus your goalie when it comes to like high danger save percentage, or what the NHL defines as high danger save percentage, and then mid-range save percentage. I think that's going to be very important going forward when it comes to just like goalie signings and stuff. Especially like, we've talked about this many times. Certain goalies do well in different systems. But Joseph Woll, I'm also very impressed where he is stopping. He's a .195 high danger save percentage. The league average is .765. So like really crazy. But I also like, this brings up something else too, is I remember when I played college, my head coach, who was also my goalie coach at the time, definitely don't recommend that setup for anyone ever. Somehow made it work. But he was talking about the percentage of like grade A situations or whatever grade A shots that we gave up. And I think it said he wanted us to stop 1 out of every 7, I think, which would be what percentage? Like, I'm not a math guy at all, so that'd be
you wanted you to give up one out of every 7. It's like 16.67%.
So it'd be 80. It's around like 87%. He wanted 87.
Your math is terrible.
I just went 6 divided by 7. He wants you to stop 6 every 7. It's the calculator.
Oh, I'm bad at math. It's me. Yeah. I'm the person. It's 14.57. My bad. Oh no.
I would never. I would know. We're leaving this. I would never guess at math because I know I'm bad at it. So I think it was it was either 6 out of every 7 or 7 out of every like 8. So it was around that high 80s to like low 90s percentage on high dangers. And in my brain, I was
That's
like,
really high.
yeah, exactly. In my brain, I was like, yeah, that seems really high. Obviously, I was on a good team, and like in college, I did really well, so it was never like an issue. But if the NHL average, meaning the best players versus the best goalies, so it's pretty even, just like in college, you're gonna have the best college guys versus the best college goalies. The average is not even in the 800s. So I think I look back at that and I'm like, whew, those expectations were pretty high. I think that's an interesting stat because I've never really considered that.
Yeah, and I mean, I can add a little bit more. I did a little side project because there's some more advanced public information, and we've talked about it before. Websites like moneypuck.com and Natural Stat Trick, and I think those are really interesting for goalie stats too for people. Those websites truthfully provide you more information than NHL Edge does, but NHL Edge's like visualizations are pretty cool. I think at least from like a pretty simple point of view. But I did a little project last year looking at goalies and trying to see who's the most kind of consistent across 3 types of scoring chances, being high, medium, and low. And when you define like high danger at 75%, like save percentage on high danger, medium at 88, and low at 96 or 97, I think it is, you only end up with like 7 or 8 goalies. So like, you know what I mean? That like idea of like an 85 to 87% save percentage on high danger, that's ridiculous. Like, I don't think anyone's truthfully going to ever achieve that, at least not how a high danger chance is defined by the NHL right now, or the public statisticians are doing it. And like a high danger chance is not a one-on-one where someone shoots from like the top of the circle. Like, let's make that very clear. That's not a high danger chance. It's a chance. It's a shot.
Yeah.
But we're talking stuff that is in pretty close to the slot. Essentially, it is right in front of the net, a bit of imagine again, kind of like a semicircle around the front of the net, extending into the bottom-ish parts of the circle. Like it's a pretty close situation. The definition that the NHL is using is pretty similar to one of the first ever definitions. Little hockey stats history lesson here. One of the first kind of high danger evaluation chances was by a blog called War on Ice, which is like a really cool name for a blog. WAR stands for wins above replacement. And so it's another stat how you evaluate players. But yeah, War on Ice's high danger chances. And so the NHL is essentially using the same ones, albeit slightly different in some capacity, but pretty close to the same. So that's been about the same definition for about 20 years. But I think that's kind of important, right? People look at, I have people tell me like, oh, my goalie had 20 high danger scored chances against. And I can believe that. I've seen lots of games where that has happened, especially in certain leagues, especially in like junior and minor hockey. But I think they're not that good. Like, I think it's really easy to call something a high danger chance, and it's like, that was just a 2-on-1 where the pass almost went back or no shot happened. It's a chance. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but that wasn't it. So that's my little stat.
I think it's funny that like I don't want to say from an untrained eye, but like oftentimes when it's like hockey parents will like extrapolate or like they'll really inflate the difficulty of what their kid is doing. Also, oftentimes I find that like goalies will, like when I do video review with a lot of my goalies, is I'll watch it and the ones that they're like, oh, I should have had, I'm like, no, you probably wouldn't have had that. And then the other ones that I'm like, you kind of like, you were just off angle. And then it's like, well, was it a great shot? It's like, well, your angle was off. It's like, I was doing that this morning with one of my goalies and it was like this high tip through like a double flash screen. He's like, yeah, I should have made that save. I should have been out more. And I was like, no, you weren't going to make that save unless it just hit you. And then another one, and then the same game, he gives up a goal over a shot to the legs. And I'm like, hey, you were just off your angle. He's like, man, it's through a screen. It was a tip, like super hard. And I don't know. It's weird that's like the exact opposite. But you know what? I like NHL Edge a lot more than people just taking stats like, oh, like save percentage, goals against, or just like some guy or girl taking stats. Which I wish this existed like for minor hockey. Here's a funny story. So
Yeah.
when I played minor midget, and for those that don't know, that's
U16 for everyone else.
U16 now. They changed it, probably for politically correct reasons.
The
but
better. It's
the better. For the better. That's when you get drafted into the OHL if you're from Ontario or the Midwest. Yeah, I don't know, some parts of the United States. I don't know.
Michigan, New York State.
But not all of the Eastern, because some of the East belongs to the Q. So I don't know.
Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts.
I don't know. So anyways, that's when you get drafted. Florida. That's when you get drafted to the Florida belongs to the Q.
Yeah, fun fact.
What about like Georgia and the Carolinas?
I'd assume so. Yeah.
I gotta check on that. That's weird. Anyways, we digress. So, big year. This is important, and for some reason, like stats kind of matter, but also like it just matters like what scouts come in the building and like wins, losses, and like what coaches are vouching for you.
Are you on a good team, and who's your coach? Yeah.
Yeah. So like, was I on a good team? Yeah, I was on a really good team. However, the other goalies' parents did the stats. So
that's awesome. Holy cow.
Probably imagine how there were games where like I would have 30 shots, like pretty standard night, nothing crazy. And I would look at the stats after and I have 12 shots. So it'd be like 2 goals on 12 shots. And instead of it being like really good numbers, because 2 on 30, it would be horrible numbers. And then when the other goalie played, it would be like super inflated. That was very frustrating. Especially when I think those parents took that stat and brought it to the head coach as like an explanation. Because in those days you rotate, like in the championships and the tournaments, like maybe one goalie plays back to back. They'll play the semifinal, final to do well. They took it and then this is like making an explanation about why their kid should be playing and not me. So
that's rock stars.
How funny! That's awesome. Wild is that? Did I get drafted to the OHL? Yeah. So did it honestly impact me? No, because I think our coach, who Ben knows, who's a good coach, who gets it.
Also, my coach. Also
Ben's coach. But wild things that happen in minor hockey. And so people talk about the politics, like that's actual politics, but it didn't really affect a whole lot. But you don't let the other goalies' parents do. Just let like one of the centerman's dads do stats.
Yeah, that's funny. I got a funny story kind of that too, but to kind of tie it into the NHL Edge part of it, right? Like I think this is really valuable information that should this is like what I consider the bare minimum is shot location plus number, right? Because this doesn't talk about rush chances, odd man rush chances, rebounds. It doesn't just screens. It's missing a lot of information, but this is a very valuable step up from just number of shots, right? Like any additional piece of information you can get is more valuable. And so I think this is a really great start by the NHL. I think for people, especially people who weren't aware of the advanced stats on goalies, I think this is like an awesome thing to have. And for people who are aware of the advanced stats, I think this can also visually accompany stuff that you're looking at. But like I said, I think this is the bare minimum. I think this could be done in minor and junior hockey. Like I don't think it's hard. Like I do this with the teams that I work with. I do shot location. I also keep track of things like scoring chances, odd man rushes, and rush chances. A rush chance just being any play that like enters the offensive zone and a shot happens within like 3 or 4 seconds of leaving the neutral zone. So leaves the neutral zone into the zone shot. That's a rush play by definition. But the reason I think this should be done is it does help with some of the silly things that we see in hockey. And I know goalies in minor hockey and junior, especially when you're trying to move up in leagues and move across leagues or whatever that is, people get obsessed with their statistics, their counting stats, right? Their goals against average and save percentage. Jamie just talked about why save percentage can be misleading when you have an interesting counting thing. I remember, Jamie, I was playing in the Golden Horseshoe Ontario Junior Hockey League many years ago.
Sutherland Cup runner-up. Not a big deal. Didn't play in a single game, but whatever.
Yeah, not a big deal. The team that I played for, I think, won a Sutherland Cup like a year or two after I left. So tough. Was a mess. But actually the year that I played in was the finals between the two teams in our division. There were so many. It's a Greater Ontario Junior Hockey. It's a Golden Rush division. There were so many
hockey in Ontario. It's a pretty good junior B hockey league. That's what it is. It's junior B hockey.
Yeah, there were so many overagers between the two teams in the conference finals. They had to change the league rules. There was like 26 OAs between the two teams in the finals. It was like actually criminal. I was like, this is just 21-year-olds all playing against each other. And it was like, this can't be healthy. But in this league, it's like my third or fourth game. Jamie, do you ever remember playing in you ever play in the old Fort Erie, like full bowl stadium? Do you ever play there?
Yeah, the one that was like a sports center area, like sporting.
Yeah,
area,
it's like a huge
pool and stuff.
Like
pretty good, like junior B arena. No fans, 0 fans.
None. But they have like a jumbotron kind of thing in the front. It's not video, but it's like a big hanging down scoreboard in the middle of the ice. And we're playing there. And as that happens on 5-on-3s, you make a save on a 5-on-3, rebound kicks right to another guy and just buries it. Right, like shot, rebound. And I remember being like, "Oh, that sucks. I hate being scored on." Yeah, I'm like, I hate being scored on those situations. Like I feel bad. I peel the puck out of the net. I look up at the stands and the team took a shot off my shots against. So I got scored on a rebound, and they're like -1 shot. And so I know people get frustrated. I know goalies get frustrated with their public counting statistics. You got to just not care. You got to try really hard to not care. And obviously, when we're trying to evaluate goalies, especially at the professional level, we have these advanced stats.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a minor hockey or junior goalie, like just know, you can tell me your save percentage is 82%. You can tell me your save percentage is 98%. Like I don't believe it.
Yeah, I actually just don't.
It's just not true. Whatever number you told me is not accurate unless you play in like the CHL, or I'd assume the USHL is probably pretty accurate. I don't know. If there's USHL goalies who have stories about shots coming off the board on goals, let us know.
It's probably more accurate. Plus, a lot of those leagues will use like Instat or like some other service that someone will track it. So
if Instat wants to sponsor us, they say so many nice things. But until then,
please, Instat,
I won't say it.
Please sponsor the pod because we need it. But that's actually so funny that you say that. There's what was I going to say? There's the worst place was in Jacksonville for stats. So like the first ever game of the organization they had played in, we gave up like 50 shots and they tracked all 50 and it was like normal. But after the game, the head coach was like, I feel like that was a lot of shots. And I was like, no, it was pretty normal. And then after that, I'm pretty sure he talked to the stats guys and was like, we need to like not make it look like we're giving up that many shots a night. Follow that up with when you played if you are the road team, because I played on Jacksonville and against Jacksonville. Let's just keep this clear as a perspective. Like when you're grinding in the minors, like stats like are kind of important because you want to not be in the minors.
They used to really matter. I truthfully don't know what it's like, but 10, 12 years ago, and even when you were playing, like if you were a defenseman, you were jumping into every single play because points mattered to move out of the ECHL. There's no defense for a long time in the ECHL. Like
you don't want to be there. People joke about eating like soggy subs after. Yeah, it's bad when your bus driver's ripping darts as you're driving down the highway, and this big fucking smoke is coming into your bunks, and you have to breathe this in. You're a professional athlete. It's not great. There's actually another good podcast. They haven't released an episode in a long time, but you can go watch some of their old ones called Minor League Madness. A couple of guys I used to play with, Braden Lowe. Shout out Braden Lowe. Hopefully they get pods again, but they bring in stories and they talk about life in the minors. It's really good. But when you played in Jacksonville as a road team, Jacksonville had this, I don't know if they still do, but they had this deal with like Burger King or something where if they gave up like 30 shots, everyone got a free burger. So I can promise
always give up 29.
They were not giving up 30 shots. And it was so frustrating because I would make like 6 or 7 saves and I would maybe get one. maybe get one. And then that number is the official number that gets submitted to the box score. And I remember I actually at warm up, I skated up to the press box guy, because I was the guy that did it. I was like, hey man, can you stop effing me on my shots? I probably shouldn't have led with the F-bomb, but I did, because I was just so frustrated. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, if I make a save, and it's like, if a puck is getting shot and it's going, if I'm not there and it goes in, that is a save. Even if it's from the other end of the ice, it's still technically a save. Like, can you please just count the saves? Didn't happen. But I definitely made it way worse. But it was insane, man. Like, there were times that I had like 12 shots, and it was 40 shot games, and they would get 12 saves. And it's like, it's comical, but no one cared, because like Burger King didn't want to pay for burgers, and no one in the stands actually cares. It's just only people that care are the goalies.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Jamie, did you ever have a zero shot period? Like, not like you didn't actually have any shots. Did you ever have games where someone recorded 0 shots in your stat book? Because I have a few of those in my life.
I think I've actually truly had like 1 or 2 0 shot periods, but I've had a few like less than 3 shot periods. None were the statisticians or the shot keepers like threw me under the bus, but there were a couple times in college when we were really good and playing really weak teams that I maybe had 1 or 2 shots.
Well, I was talking about like the 9 save period where you look after and it's a 0, and you're like, okay, well, 0.
Oh, never that. But if I did, if I did, I was definitely against Jacksonville. So just go to my elite prospects when I was in like Florida. Just look at the games against Jacksonville, and it's probably like, oh man, Jamie only had like averaged like 12 shots a night in Jacksonville. Florida must have been pretty good. We were pretty good, but we weren't like 12 shots a night pretty good. So
sorry. If anyone's watching the video, you'll have a bonus.
Yes, you can just walk through.
Bonus sneak peek back.
People know that we live in squalor. And good news though, for those listening to the pod that have been complaining about my living situation with internet, on the 17th of November, get a new apartment, and that means new internet. So right now, I've explained a few times, like I'm renting a room in this like old house from like from like pre-Civil War era. My internet is not good. So like when I skate in a weekend, I typically will have like 4 or 5 hours of sessions. And so I go all out for my goalies. So I bring like 3 or 4 cameras. So we're looking at like 20 plus hours of footage. And I get that that's a lot, but there are times where it takes almost 5 days to upload all the footage. So I just go to like Grand Valley's like library campus, use their public internet, and just upload it from there, because I can't do it here. It's painful.
And Jamie, that brings us to a really important segment, which is everyone should go check out Jamie Phillips' Patreon page. Jamie's making some of the best hockey and goaltending educational information over there on Patreon at Jamie Phillips. If you're looking for some of his free stuff, you should definitely check out the YouTube page. If you're not already subscribed to Jamie, go subscribe to his content. It also makes great information on Instagram. So as always, the Jamie Phillips Patreon plug is here to help support Jamie's new apartment and his new Wi-Fi. So like what he's doing, like we're doing here. Appreciate everything that people do over there for Jamie.
I definitely like appreciate those like patrons, and I appreciate everyone that listens, but I do appreciate the patrons and stuff like more than people know. But one of the goals for the new place is to like create a cool podcast backdrop. I don't really know how. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, and I feel like I might need to just like phone a friend who's good at that stuff and help me out. But that is one of the goals. So yes, Patreon does help. I recorded a lot of stuff. I actually just recorded like a bunch of video lessons today. I'm gonna be throwing them up this week. Like Patreon gets like the good stuff. YouTube gets some of the good stuff. Patreon gets all the good stuff.
And Instagram gets all my hard labor that Jamie puts out.
No, I grind so hard on Instagram. It takes me so long to make some of those videos just for someone to just comment. Oh man, it's actually, I don't know. Do you have TikTok, Ben?
No, I do not have TikTok.
There's this one guy who's like he's for sure, he's a troll. Like he doesn't like, it has to be satirical. I'll make a video especially with like butterfly or RBH or something. And he always comments like the going down is outdated. You guys need to stop and just stay on your feet and stuff. And
That's hilarious.
people that comment, and he just argues with everybody, just argues with everyone that comments. And so like I shout out to him for boosting my algorithm, but he just goes every video, he goes crazy. I love it.
That's hilarious. Respect to that guy. Not really, but I appreciate the bit.
I just kind of hope he's
Jeremy,
not serious, but there's no way he's serious.
There's not. Jerry, I want to talk a little bit more about some extra bonus things that I think are relevant. Just on kind of like some goalie stat things and visualizing and understanding. Again, in the same range, going back to the NHL Edge, understanding where shot location is. There's a few important, and you kind of brought some stuff up before about like shots from distance or misleading as low danger when there's like traffic. And that's one of the big complaints that is deservingly so. A shot from the blue line with or without traffic is an entirely different situation. But an important consideration is a shot with traffic is less likely to get on net. So that's just something, that's my one caveat there for shots from distance. The more traffic you add, yes, way harder of a situation for a goalie, but also way less likely that the puck will actually get to the net. So there is a double-edged sword to that as a shot. So when that's categorized as a low danger shot, yes, it can be good, but if anyone's really curious, go watch a game, and the more traffic you get, see how many of those shots actually get to the net versus miss the net, hit a body, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's actually some really important information. Second thing, this is ultimately one of the biggest things that people should know, is anytime a puck crosses the midline. So people have heard about Royal Road stuff. That's the terminology that gets used a lot. But anytime a puck crosses the midline of the ice, and the puck is released within 1 second after it crosses the midline, that has a really high chance of a shot going, and that really increases the odds that the puck goes in. Logically, you're essentially catching, releasing, or one-timing that puck as it crosses the midline. So that's why those shots are so valuable. Just because a puck crosses the middle of the ice does not make it more dangerous, though, unless that shot comes quickly. So that's my extra caveat, because sometimes people are like, oh, that puck went, across Royal Road and then they scored. Well, it's like, well, the pass went across Royal Road and then 5 seconds later they scored.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the same situation that we hear that Royal Road about. So I wish we had pass locations. That's the one thing I wish NHL Edge did. If we had like if you could isolate how many passes crosses midline or how many passes go low to high, I think that would be really cool, because I think those are really telling. My random hot take, I don't have any data support. This is entirely just a personal feeling when I played. I actually hated low to high one-timers much more than cross-crease one-timers. Just because I felt the low to high, I know it's a bit of a weird take. It's not that, I'm not saying that I was better at them. I just always did not enjoy stepping out into someone skating full speed into a one-timer coming north, like from, north-south. I was like, this person's just going to absolutely step into this thing. So that's my hot take. I have no data to support that being harder. I'm not sure it is.
I don't know. I all subjective, but I guess like if someone's skating into it, they also get the additional velocity of their body momentum into the shot.
Probably a harder shot.
Yeah. There was definitely something I was going to talk about, and I forgot in my rambles about life in the Cheese Toast Hockey League. What were we talking about before? And so there's a tracker. There's a tracker in pucks.
There is.
How come it doesn't, like, like we go to the Toronto to say, was that a goal? Did that cross the goal line? How come the tracker doesn't tell you when it completely crosses the goal line?
I'll be totally honest. I do not have the information, but from what I understand, it's like it pings off the puck, right? So like there's a signal that pings off the puck for location. And so like depending on where the ping happens, right, the full puck might not be over the line. That's how I understand it. Admittedly, if people are looking for a lot more information on this stuff, I believe, and I'll link it in the show notes of this episode, there is a podcast episode by a podcast called Expected by Whom, where they speak with one of the data people that works for the NHL that does this data information. It's where I've heard a lot of this. We'll link it in the show notes. They do a really interesting deep dive. One of the fun things that they do say in this podcast, and spoiler, if you can go check it out, is that even with all the tracking data that they have, modeling goaltending is still the hardest thing to do. it's really complicated, really confusing, even with all that information they have to say who was the best goalie and who's consistent. Because
like how do you measure a tip versus a tip through a screen versus a tip through a flash screen, tip up, tip down? Like
it's complicated. And
I think the one thing that this is probably giving away someone's $1 billion idea, and if it is, I'll just cut it out. You'd think that you could use like a generative AI system or whatever the AI systems are to train it on all the video available on the NHL, and then use it to kind of cut up and come up with different stats where you just let it run through and it picks up that was a tip. So that gets, sorted in the tip department and then gets filtered down. Was there a tip with a screen? Was a tip with 2 screens? Was a tip with 3 screens? And it organizes it itself automatically. And then it comes up with a way to be as like unbiased as possible. It would be like similar to a human looking at it and being like, okay, it was tipped and it was tipped through screen. That's pretty difficult. So that's going to be like a high danger versus it was a tip, but there was no screen. That's going to be like a somewhere between mid and high danger. I don't know.
Well, Jamie, let me give you a little bit of, this is now computer science at the Goalie Science Podcast. The models that you would want to have trained on would be human coded first. So a human would code that as a tip, and then the algorithm would learn that that's a tip because you told it that it was a tip. So it would be trained on human behavior. That's the first thing, or most likely trained that way. Second thing, there is some work on this that has been done. And one of the biggest challenges that we see with hockey compared to something like baseball, compared to something like even basketball and football, is that there is a relatively low sample size of those type of events. So like I'll give a shout out to a private company, but ClearSight Analytics is known for their very granular goalie data. So they do a lot of like, there was a pass cross ice that went to a high danger zone, or low slot, mid slot, high slot, 1 screen, 2 screen, 3 screen, flash screen. Like they have a lot of layers in the way that they track their data. But ultimately, the challenge with that is you can get through a season of like 60 games. Let's say, example, a goalie plays 60 games, and they might have only seen a certain situation 25 times, right? That's not enough to really make a judgment call. And I remember last year in the NHL playoffs, if anyone was watching the mainstream media coverage of Tampa Bay and Toronto, there was a lot of talk about Andrei Vasilevskiy not being good in traffic. That was like the big talking point, is like the Leafs are going to win if they get traffic in front of Vasilevskiy. And then there was some discussion around some data that was released by ClearSight. And again, this is, shout to them. But I think it was something like Vasilevskiy was like 21 of 30 on this type of play, whether it was like a 2-layer screen point shot that went, from D to D. D to D point shot, 2-layer screen. And it's like, that play happened for him less than once a game, right? Half a time per game. And it can be great to try to generate that. But admittedly, I don't know if that data included all shot attempts, right? Like if you try that play, how often does that puck get to the net? Right? So I think the biggest challenge in hockey is just how there's so many different situations. And I think we're getting more and more data. But the biggest challenge is we see trends in people playing the game differently every few years in game shift. And so, using the same data from 2013 and the same video from that might not actually really reflect what's being done in 2023, right? And so I think that's always going to be the biggest challenge in hockey, especially for goalies, is like, how often do you see this specific situation? Like I find myself talking to goalies, and I'm curious, this one from a coaching perspective, Jamie, is a goal will go in, or a play that almost led to a goal will go in, and I'll be talking with the goalie and they're like, yeah, like I don't, like, what do I do on that? And I just kind of go, well, it probably won't happen again this season, or it might happen once again this season, right? Like that's such a low probability play, a low familiarity play, that there's probably not or any reason to really worry about it or really focus on it. And I think that ultimately is where the advanced information that you're requesting, I think that's where we probably need to boil it into a bigger pot instead of trying to be really hyper granular with it. Otherwise, we'll just never get enough information. You're never getting enough information on how did a goalie do with a mid-level flash screen on a cross ice one-timer. It's just like, it's too granular, right? You're never gonna have enough data on that. to make conclusions if you're good or bad at it. So,
and then also
that's talking some advanced stats with that.
I also now that I think the thing that is good, but if someone was like, hey, Jamie, you're now the scout for the Toronto Maple Leaf goalies. Joseph Wall gave up 2 one-timer. He was 0.2% on one-timer through traffic, flash screen, tip shots. Like, I don't care. Like, I just don't care. Yeah. So that's not what I'm going to use to judge his performance.
Yeah, when this
not to be those old scouts and Moneyball, the ones that you watch and you're like, you guys are old, but there's so many more layers to stats are important. I'm not gonna just stats tell us a lot. They don't tell us everything.
Yeah, and that's ultimately where your answer should always be. At this point, we're recording this on October 29th, 2023, and if your opinion is either we should only look at the data, or if your opinion is we should only look at the game, you're both wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Because the data is a really incredible compliment, and it also shows us things that we don't pick up. It shows us patterns that we don't. So I'll tell a quick story here. So I do some manual tracking teams, and that was not just goalies, but for the actual players as well. And I was tracking a game the other day, and over an entire game, this team only had 12 controlled zone entries. So that's a situation where the team entered from the neutral zone into the offensive zone, was able to stop and set a play up essentially. And that's a really low number. It's a really, really, really low number. For example, the team they were playing against had about 2.5 times that many. So it's in a game, you might not realize, you might be just oh, we had a tough time scoring, we weren't getting chances. That might be what you say. But just tracking that data shows, we weren't gaining the zone with controlled possession enough, right? Maybe our offense wasn't coming from that because we weren't establishing control in the offensive zone. And so that's an example of why you need both, right? Because watching the game, you would have seen, we had a tough time getting chances, but you might not see the pattern that led to that. And so that's why I think both really complement each other. And I'm very happy to defend that side of the argument forever.
You need stats, you need the actual game, and then you need to go to the bar after the game and ask the guy that used to be a goalie who's had 6 beers, what was his thoughts on that goalie, and that will give you.
And he'll tell you that
he actually was better than him, and if he didn't hurt his knee, he would have went pro.
Did you not see that goal? He did not cut down the angle the way he used to. That darn RVH.
Okay, I got to talk about this because it's funny. I'm going to make some content. So the thing is the perspective has been people have kind of skewed their perspective. So I was just watching Montreal versus Winnipeg just because I needed something to watch while I was eating lunch, and there was 4 5-hole goals. 4 5-hole goals.
And let me tell you, I actually told my goalies no more butterflies. We're out in the butterfly. It doesn't work.
So butterfly doesn't, obviously the butterfly doesn't work because goalies keep giving up 5-hole goals, and 4 in one game, just throw it out. But the thing is over. But the thing is that the same argument that people use with the RVH. They're RVH is broken. Doesn't work. This week, 2 goalies gave up a short side goal in the RVH. Throw it out. We need to think of something better. And it's not the save that's broken. It's the execution. There's nothing wrong with the butterfly. If you butterfly too late, or you're too patient, or something. It's just like the RVH. If you enter too early, you enter at the wrong time. It's poorly executed. And then I've had a few people actually message me, and I haven't got back to them because I work 27 jobs. Say they thought that I was complaining about the butterfly being broken. So some of them, because I just see it on my watch as so and so replied to your message, and it's then it's just well, how would you change the butterfly then? I wouldn't, because it's not the problem. It's just the RVH is the problem. You're looking at it the wrong way. You're taking the wrong side. So I made a meme because I absolutely love memes. I think it's just I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe it's just
it's your outlet. It's your passion.
It is my passion and my outlet. I also saw a funny meme saying that if you find them, you find the person who is the most depressed, they're gonna have the best memes. I'm yeah, that makes so much sense.
It all adds up.
Therapy time with Jamie.
Jamie, I have one fun.
Yeah. let's start thinking critically about hockey, please, and goaltending.
Yeah. I have one final comment. It's kind of going to tie it. I'm going to put a little bow on our conversation today around stats. And again, going back to NHL Edge, which I really strongly encourage everyone to check out. I think if you haven't thought about shots and tracking stuff this way, like I said, it's a nice step up from the base level. But one thing which is cool to look at is go check out where goalies are being scored from on the ice. So, for example, I have a close personal friend of the show, Joseph Wall, his goals against pulled up from, and he's got 4 from basically the lower slot in our house, and then 1 from kind of like the mid upper slot. And he's only getting up 5 goals this year, so shout out to him. But they're all from the center of the ice. I think, again, the sample size is really low, but that's something that over a season or over half a season we can start to look at, right? So if you're a goalie and you're playing a couple games a week, keep track of where you're getting scored on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Location might tell you something. I know that there was definitely periods of my life playing where I was misplaying some glove side angle stuff and was getting beat far side. And I know that was a part of my life that I had to kind of work through and figure that out. But if you're not tracking it, you might not realize. So again, another thing too, and again, once you start adding in shot location, it also makes your shot counting more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked before, it's easy to just put ticks down when you think a shot exists or a shot doesn't. When you're forced to put a spot on each one of them, you end up being a little more precise to it. That's why I want to today, Jamie. I think NHL Edge is a cool tool. We should check it out. People should use it, and hopefully we get more stuff from it as the season rolls out and as the NHL wants to roll out more stuff.
I wonder if we could get Joseph on the podcast in the off season. I don't know. People are like, well, Jamie, you have Instagram followers, especially. Well, I emailed a company that makes pegs that I really like, and I wanted to partner because I think they're really good pegs, and they did not reply to my email. So I don't have any pull.
We have Jamie's no pull, but over the next couple of months, we have a couple of guests coming on.
We do.
So we have goalie coaches coming on. We have some sports researchers coming on that I'm really excited about. So if you're someone who likes the science and goalie science, I'll be doing some interviews with some people who I really respect and who do really cool work in sports and motor learning and skill development. And we can go find out what all those fancy things mean another time. But Jamie, that's all I got for you. Anything else?
Thanks for watching, listening, like, comment, subscribe. You know the jazz. Patreon's where it's at. Use it and you'll get better. Guaranteed. I gotta get that guaranteed.
Remember, when Jamie gets to 150 patrons, he's contractually obligated to put me on the payroll. So
if everyone
push Jamie there.
If everyone who followed me on Instagram just followed me on Patreon for like 2 months, I could open up my training center.
You heard it here first, folks.
Heard it here first.
That's the key to Jamie's success. All right. Check out NHL Edge. Check out Jamie's Patreon and YouTube. And if anyone has any goalie stats questions, don't ask Jamie. He'll send you my way anyway.
It's exactly what I'll do.
Jamie?
Or sports psych questions, because I will send you to a sports psych.
That's how it works. All right, Jamie. Until next time.